Hello everyone, my name is Suhad. I'm from St. Louis. I'm Palestinian American and I live in St. Louis. I see St. Louis people, so I just want to get familiar with them before I get nervous. I get nervous when people look at me at the same time, so if you want to stare at the wall or something the first 5 minutes before I start. So I'm here to talk about our mobilization for Ferguson. I think 2 weeks ago, there was public hearing at the City Hall. The council met with people from the community. Basically, what they were doing, they had a very fancy name for it in the email. I can't remember what it is, but I think it was basically the council wanted to make sure that whatever happened in Ferguson doesn't spread to the rest of St. Louis. It was like, how can we be less racist, basically. I work in downtown and I couldn't attend the whole thing, but I thought over lunch break I'll just drop by and hear a couple testimonials. And I think I went on the perfect time. A young African-American man walked up to the council and said, "You all know that St. Louis is the most racist city in the US right now. But you are afraid to admit it, you're afraid to acknowledge it, because if you did, you would have to make change." Now, yeah, that was an awesome testimonial, wasn't it? Yeah, I agree. Now, I'm not black. I don't feel threatened every time I walk by an officer. I don't feel like I fear for my life every time I walk by an officer. I don't get pulled over every time I go on the 270 going to West County. So I definitely don't understand what it is, but I understand oppression. As a Palestinian, I understand oppression. And I haven't been to every city in the US, but I've lived in St. Louis for 8 years, and even though I like it, I do agree St. Louis is probably one of the most racist cities I've been to personally. Now, before I move on with my presentation, because I know that this could be a difficult conversation, talking about oppressions and connecting. I had a very intense conversation last night. I just want to quote last year I went on a delegation to Palestine, and the delegate who walked us around in Jaffa started our tour by saying that everything, and I'm saying that to you now, everything I'm about to say now is my personal view of what's happening in Ferguson. It's what I've read, it's what I've lived. So if you disagree with me, it's just because we read different websites or books. Not because I'm wrong. Yes, husband, not because I'm wrong. So, also before I start talking about our mobilization for Ferguson, I want to talk about a coalition that started a year before Ferguson happened. The PSC started coalition work, they started a coalition called the Dump Veolia Coalition last year. Veolia wanted to have a consultation contract with the city's water department. It was a $250,000 contract. And we started a coalition and we reached out to our friends. Now, while, like I mentioned, St. Louis is probably one of the racist cities, the thing about racism is that it, not knowingly, like indirectly, kind of creates wonderful activism to resist it. And that's why I think in St. Louis, and I'm not being biased at all, but I think like we have some of the best activists in the country living in St. Louis, not being biased at all. But when we started working on Veolia, we started doing it for Palestine. But then, for me personally, I did not know about Veolia's disregard for the democratic process, their environmental violations here in the US, their labor the problems they have with their labor, like all of these things I got to know, like everything you expect from a company that supports occupation and house-built settlements, basically. So it was kind of easy for us to get people on board with the coalition, especially the environmentalist groups. But some of the core members who stood in solidarity with us in that coalition were the Organization for Black Struggle. As soon as we said that we needed support, they came there and they stood in solidarity with us along the entire year when we had to fight that bill. On October 2013, we won. It was the first contract, it was the first win, I'm correctly saying this, but it was the first win in the US, right? Yeah. Wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah, we're awesome. If you want to clap again, go for it. Yeah, we deserve it. So on August 9, 2014, and I think this is a date that we all need to remember, an unarmed Mike Brown, a few blocks away from his house, was shut down at least 6 times. And his dead body was left in the streets for hours. On the day he was supposed to his parents were supposed to bid farewell to him while he goes to college, they had to bury him under the ground. Most of us here are parents, and we know what that means. Now you all know about the chaos that happened after that. There were demonstrations in the streets. So much was going on a national level, and mostly in Ferguson. The Organization for Black Struggle initiated a coalition, and we as Palestine Solidarity Committee, St. Louis Palestine Solidarity Committee, we knew that we needed to be in solidarity with them after our years and years. It's not just the Veolia coalition, it was the years and years that led up to that moment, and the personal connections that we've had with the people in the Organization for Black Struggle. Now I was in the meeting, the very first meeting for the coalition. It's called the Don't Shoot Coalition, and we were agreeing on the statement, the first statement of how we are presenting ourselves. And there was one line in that statement that says, "End police brutality against Black and brown people." And one person in the room, African American, said, "I'm Black, but I don't see anyone else going through what I go through every single day." Like I said, I'm the other brown person in the room, but I don't fear for my life every time I walk by a cop. And that's true, he is right. But there were other people in the room who have mobilized with us a few weeks before that, who have attended every single demonstration we had for Gaza, who've held Palestinian flags and stood in solidarity. There were people who worked tirelessly on the Veolia campaign who said, if it happens to us today, it will happen to our Muslim and Arab brothers tomorrow. And at that point, I personally knew that I don't think I've ever worked on something so big, and I don't think I will ever be able to. This was huge. I knew at that moment that was a major point. And what resonated with me the most is that while we were trying as a coalition to talk about Ferguson in particular and not make it St. Louis, even though racism is all over, we wanted it to be about Ferguson so that Mike Brown is never forgotten. It still was an international movement. The people in Gaza were sending tweets to people in Ferguson on how to recover from tear gas. And there were people in the room who didn't know where Gaza was, but were retweeting those tweets, and they were very emotional about them. A couple of weeks ago, my friend from, I'm also a member in the US Palestinian Community Network, and my friends from the Chicago chapter, hello, friends from the Chicago chapter, they called me and they said that they are coming, they've worked on police brutality violations for years, and when Ferguson happened, they waited for it to calm down so that they could come on a delegation to St. Louis. And they told me that the African American members in the delegation wanted to meet with the Palestinian activists in St. Louis so that we can talk, just, I was like, yeah, sure, Muhammad, I'll arrange for a meeting. He's like, no meetings. Because by the time we get to you, we will have 2 intense days of meetings, so we need an informal gathering. I was like for drinks, like, do I take them outside? They're like, no, like a house setting. So I had felt like I was pressured to invite them to my house. And I don't have a problem with that, only my house, like my aunt describes my house as the dollhouse. You can't fit 5 people, not because I have nice furniture, just because you can't fit more than 5 people in any room that we shoulder to shoulder like this. So when Muhammad says around 10 people are coming, this means between 10 and 100 people are coming. Like very loose. Anyway, I invited some of the leaders in OBS, and there were some of the activists, African American, Arab, Palestinian, Lebanese activists from Chicago. There were people from Oakland. There was our group, a core Palestinian group in St. Louis. We got together. I had to kick everyone outside to the backyard because there wasn't enough space for them, and I wanted us all to be in the same room, like talk to each other. I didn't want us to be divided into different rooms. And it was the first chilly night of this autumn, and it kind of made us get closer, And I'm very dramatic in general, but I honestly feel like that was a historical moment for me. For me personally, as a Palestinian, I felt like that was definitely a turning point. The year before that, I went to Palestine for the first time, and that was a turning point. And then that moment when I sat with African American activists who understand my oppression, and I didn't know I had a personal connection with them. We've mobilized before, but the conversation was just magical. It was amazing. It was like, it wasn't reinventing the wheel. We were talking about things that Malcolm X used to talk about all the time, and it got disconnected once, things just got out of control. So I feel like the most important thing that came to me after weeks and weeks of mobilizing for Gaza, and then weeks and weeks of intense mobilizing for Ferguson, that was like the best part of it. And what was most important to me was how we all agreed that we need to unify the language. That what happened to Mike Brown was modern day lynching. It's the exact same thing that happened to Mohammed Abu Khadir al-Khalid. The white minority in Ferguson is controlling the black majority and oppressing them. That's called apartheid, just like what's happening in Palestine. So the same media that portrays black demonstrators in Ferguson as looters and savages who deserve to be shut down and taken to jail is the exact same media that portrayed every single Palestinian in Gaza as Hamas supporter who deserves to be killed, and their house deserves to be bombed. This is the exact same thing. Now, as was mentioned this morning and mentioned many times today, there will be the Organization for Black Struggle and the Don't Shoot Coalition initiated a national mobilization movement between October 10th and October 13th. And that is the moment where we as Palestinians and Palestinian allies, Palestine solidarity movements, need to be there in solidarity. There are times, and I'm borrowing this from my friend Colleen, because it makes so much sense that there are times when you draw connections, and I feel like we did that when we had our informal meeting, when we built the personal relationships between activists, and there are times when we stand in solidarity, and I feel that this mobilization in October is the time when we show solidarity. When it's about Ferguson and about what's happening there, we understand that. There are members from the St. Louis Palestine Solidarity Committee, the USPCN, and the US campaign who are present here during this conference. And today during lunch we will discuss some possibilities of you know, if anyone would like to help, would be interested in helping, or feels like they can attend and wants something to do, maybe we can brainstorm, have a brainstorming session around lunch, so come and find us. And yeah, just go back to your communities and tell them about what's happening, and always stand in solidarity. Thank you very much.